Welcome. So today you're going to be doing your first 3D print, so I'm excited for you. If you need help along the way, I'm here to help you. Don't think this video means that I won't help you. Alright, so first thing you're going to do is choose which Lego design you want to print. I don't care which one it is. And bring it up in Fusion 360. So now we've got it here. Go to your bodies folder and open the bodies folder by clicking this little arrow here. You should have one body. If you have multiple bodies in there, call me over. I'll help you join them all together before you go to print. You can only print one body. Well, that's not true. It needs to be in one body. Don't worry about that. Now, to do it, it couldn't be easier. We need to generate from Fusion 360 a file type that's called 3MF or STL, also OBJ. Those are three different file types that you can use for going to the next step, which is sending it to what's called a slicer. And that's what actually slices into layers so the 3D printer can print it. So to create that file type out of our body, we're going to just right click where it says body here, or whatever you called it. And we're going to come down here and we're going to do save as mesh. That's going to bring the save as mesh dialog box open. It's already been selected, and it's going to say the format's 3MF. So you can choose between STL, OBJ, and 3MF. I like 3MF. One thing to check though, before you do this, hit cancel. Check your document settings. No matter what you modeled in, make sure you switch them before you send that file to millimeters. The next program is going to expect the dimensions that are in the file to be millimeters. If this is something else, it makes life harder later. Okay, so make sure that says millimeters. Cancel. Alright, right click on body 1, save as mesh. I like to use the format 3MF. Notice here the unit type is millimeters. And it's great because in 3MF I can't change it. It inherits it from the program that you were using. And I can click on preview mesh to see what it's going to do. So this is what it actually sends. So it doesn't send the solid object, it sends all these little triangles which approximates the shape of the object, which is kind of cool. Now the refinement means how many triangles you're going to use. The higher the refinement, the longer it's going to take the program to create the triangles and export and everything else. But if you're on a fairly fast computer, no big deal. So here, this is on low refinement. You can see there's just a lot fewer of these triangles that define all the shapes. So I'm going to go here and go back to high. There's some refinement options. You can play around with those, see what they do. I'd leave them just like that. And then I'm going to click OK. Next thing it's going to do is going to ask you where to save this file to. You're going to save this file to the flash drive on your computer that has inside the folder with your name on it. So make sure you get it in the right place so you can find it later. I'm going to put this in right now in my download section. Right now my computer's messed up. I'm going to call it a new folder and I'm going to just do Lego print. I'm going to put it in there. And I'm going to name this something. Body 1's not very descriptive, so I'm going to name this the arch. And I'm going to hit save. Okay, my Fusion time is over. Now I need to go get that file and slice it. So I'm going to go ahead and close Fusion. And it's going to upload that file. Then I'm going to come here and I'm going to search for Prusa, P-R-U-S-A. And I'm looking for Prusa Slicer, not Viewer or anything like that. So Prusa Slicer is what I'm going with. And it has this like sliced S symbol for Prusa Slicer. And this is it. So what you're looking at is the bed. It looks just like the print bed on our printers. If yours doesn't look like this, it's because you probably have the wrong printer installed. Let's go through that real quick. Right now you should be on 0.2mm quality. This is a good one to use for just regular prints. If I've got something with super simple shapes, like a bracket for something that's like, you know, some blocky stuff, I'll actually use 0.3 draft. It's a thicker layer height. What that means is all these numbers to start with is how thick each layer is. So the thinner the layer, the more layers you need, but the more detail you get. So we never exceed 0.1. 0.07 and 0.05, these have really high failure rates because the layer is so thin, you have to really figure out how to use them well. 0.1 is as far as we go, but that would be only if we were printing like a little figurine or something where there's like lots of details in their clothes and face and stuff we want to capture. 0.2 is a great one to use for almost everything you do. So 0.2 quality. Now know also that if you use 0.05 ultra detail or 0.1, it's going to be a much longer print because it's going to be printing many more layers to get to the same object. All right, so point 2, make sure the filament is set to generic PETG. That's the only plastic we use in classroom. And the printer should be original Prusa i3, MK3S, MK3S Plus. If it's not set to that already, let me know. I'll help you figure out how to set those. Okay, everything looks, oh, this is at the speed. I'm going to put it to quality actually. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File and Import. I need to bring my file in now. So now you're going to navigate to the flash drive on your computer, and you're going to find the thing you just saved. Mine's in the Lego print, and it's called Arch. It just brought it in. Notice it's really small. That's great because Legos are really small. Now we need to decide which part to put up and which part to put down. To do that, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, tip it to the side so I can kind of see all the features of it. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Slice now. What this does is it slices the thing into little layers going up that the printer can print. And you can see on this one, if you look up here at the top when it's done, well, first of all, let's look down here in the lower right. This is how much filament is used, 1.31 grams, hardly any filament. 0.43 meters, so half a meter, about this long of a piece of filament. And it's going to cost 4 cents to print, pretty nice. And it's going to only take 16 minutes to print. So it's going to be a really fast print too because it's so small. All right, so now what we can do is analyze and see what might be wrong with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, using the arrow keys on my keyboard, I'm going to use the down arrow and push down a few times. Notice what it's doing in the picture here. We're actually moving down one layer of each time down the print. And we're looking for places where there's plastic being printed over air where it can't print. I'll show you a place. All this looks good. Notice that each layer is stacked right on top of the layer below it, so it won't be an issue anywhere in there. All those are all good. And right there. So this layer here is going to need to print across here. And these two circles, let me go back one real quick. Notice how this circle of plastic that's going to print is going to be printing out over air. It is not going to like to print that. And also, these sort of back and forth blue ones in here are going to not print well because they're going to not have anything to print on top of. It's going to goo out over air. The print will still work because this layer will catch a little better, and then this one will be really good, and this will be good, and then this one will be really solid. But what you'll find is underneath the print down here, this first blue layer is going to be really rough where the plastic kind of warped and bent and wasn't where it's supposed to be. Or it might actually altogether fail. We'll have to find out. So there's a problem right there. So we just found that first problem. Let's look for more problems as we go up. And what we're looking for are places where the plastic doesn't stack on the layer below. So I'm going to zoom in so we can see what's going on. And everything looks good. Everything's stacked. That's not surprising. Zoom out a little bit. And to move around, what I'm doing is if I push the mouse wheel down like a button, I can then go left, right, up, and down. If I just click and drag the left mouse button, it'll rotate me all around like crazy. Okay, so those are the two main ways to move around. I'm going to keep going up with the arrow key until we hit that arch. There it is. Now you can see these layers are off to the side a little bit, but not enough to be problematic. So I'm going to keep going. Ooh, so now we're starting to get, I'm going to tip it sideways so we can see it a little better. Now we're starting to get pretty far out there. This is where things are going to start getting a little bit janky as we see how this edge, this whole side is way off this side below it. This is the problem with creating bottom curves on a printer. And you can see this last one right here is probably not going to print that great. Like this orange, this side here won't have fully gotten, it would be like hanging over the edge and bending down a little bit. This next piece right here might print okay because notice how the blue goes all the way across, and so does the orange and yellow. So this should work out pretty well actually, and up into this, no problems. All right, so what happens though if it didn't work well? Like this probably will print okay. I'm a little concerned about the bottom, but not too much because it's small. So let's look at how we can solve this maybe. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click back over here in the lower left corner, back to my editing view. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see what's going on. So I can actually choose which face is down flat. To do that, I can click here and say place on face and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to try and print it here. And then I'm going to reslice it. I'm going to see what happens. And now I'm going to zoom in so we can kind of see. And it looks like, notice how now it's slicing across this direction, which is just kind of cool. I'm going to drag it down and notice this circle is going to print out not very clean because it's going to be all these little, I'll zoom in on so you can see it. It's going to be all these little layers instead of a nice clean circle. So that's going to be problematic. And then over here, all of that is fine. Let me go back up a little bit. Again, these holes are going to be kind of wonky. Ooh, there was one right there. So if you look, this next layer up, this piece of plastic is never going to, it's like it's going to go out here and then come back over air. This is never going to set up. That's not going to print at all. So this is probably not a very good way to print either. And this last little bit's okay because it's going to go from one edge to another and it's going to be able to bring that right across. That's called bridging. And yeah, so this is a decent way to print it. Like, I wouldn't be wrong about this. The only thing is going to give you some really unclean edges where these circles are not very pretty. Whereas the upright would give you a better look there. And then let's do one more. Let's just look at what would happen if we put this face down. Right? And now I'm going to slice it real quick. And these are small enough models that they slice really fast. So let's go down and see what happens. Boom, 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 boom. Ooh. That might be a little bit of a problem. Not too much though, because notice that it's going, when it goes to print this outside square, it's going to start on plastic, go over, and then land again on plastic, and then come around. So that might actually work okay. I'm a little concerned about it. Again, we get this kind of weird shape on the circle. It's not going to be really a crisp circle. And then down here, oh, I think you can see this down here too. We start running into a bit of a problem down here at the bottom where the slope comes in a bunch. There's going to be this point here that's going to it's not going to like printing this orange layer way out like this. So it's going to give you a really rough kind of ugly print this way as well. So there is, oftentimes there's like a really good way of doing it and really bad ways. In this case, I don't know. I don't think there's a particularly good way of doing it. So what I would result to is say, hey, I'd like to print it in the way that's going to look the best on the outside, which is probably click on the object, click on the place thing, which is probably going to be in the vertical direction. Awesome. So now once I figure out which way I want to do it, and for me it's this way, for your piece it's whatever it is, if you can't find a way where you can print without it being all messed up, let me know. I'll help you problem solve it and figure it out. I'm going to hit slice now. Now, once this is sliced, I'm ready to get to the printer. So what I want you to do next, I want you to go choose a color that you're going to print, pull the SD card out of that printer, and take it back over. The SD card's on where the orange screen is. On the left side of that is the SD card. Pull it out of the printer, bring it back over to here. I'll go grab one myself. Okay, so I chose the clear or transparent PETG plastic to print with. So I got the SD card here. I'm going to put that into my computer. When that happens, two things happen typically. Typically, a screen will pop up and just showing you what's on the card. You can just close that screen. The second thing that happens is down here, export G-code. There's a little button that showed up here, export the SD card. G-code, what is that? Well, we started in Fusion. We created the 3MF file, which we used to get here. And now we're going to create a file type called G-code. G-code is the actual instructions telling the printer to go which directions to take on each layer, and then how high to move up and to do it all over again. All that information about where the actual extruder goes is in this G-code file. To export this, we're going to click on this button way over here for the export to SD card. That should bring up a card called Prusa something. And we're going to name this, oh, it looks good, Arch. Arch looks good to me. 0.02, and this gives you information about the print. So it's 0.2 millimeter layer heights. It's going to go up 0.2 millimeters every time. It's PETG plastic. It's being printed on an MK3S printer, and it's going to take 16 minutes. Once you have that, just hit save. All right, so the next thing we got to do is head on over to the printer and print it out. That part is really easy. Okay, so I've got my SD card. I have my sliced files on here, my G-code files on here. I'm going to turn the printer on, let it get started to where the blue screen gets stable. I'm just going to slide the SD card in. It goes with the gold facing you. Slide it in. It'll automatically bring up the files. Now before I print, I need to clean the print bed. If I don't clean the print bed, I end up with the problem of the print not sticking to the base well and falling off halfway through the print and the whole thing's ruined starting over. So I'm going to go grab some alcohol. So I've got the alcohol spray bottle here, and I've got some paper towels here. I'm going to give it 3 good squirts, and then I'm just going to scrub it down a little bit. Now I'm going to get it nice and clean. Now I'm not pushing down with a huge amount of force, but I'm also pushing down a little bit, like a medium amount of force pushing down. And then I'm going to click on the button. If it doesn't already have the files up, I'm going to rotate down to print from SD, click the button again, go down and find mine. In this case it says Arch, and I'm going to just click there. You might get an error message sometimes that says it needs to be updated. Just push the button again or let it sit there and it'll automatically start printing. You're done. That's all the printing takes. So the printer's going to heat up and it's going to then test for level across in 9 places across the surface. And then when everything's heated up and ready to go, it'll just start printing. And you can tell here in the lower right corner it says it has 15 minutes left to print, and everything is great. I hope you enjoy. You're going to have a great project coming out of this, I'm sure of it.